Hello everyone, welcome to Res Snapper. My name's MJ, and this is Snap or Pass, the series where we look at the brand new cards coming to Marvel Snap each week, and this week it's Redwing. He's a 3/3. The first time this moves, add a card from your hand to the old location. In this video we're going to look at the Spotlight week that Redwing is in, and the cards that are available alongside him there. Counters, synergies, locations, deck ideas, and ultimately answer the question, is he a Snap or Pass? You can lose if you play this card and you don't move him, but you can also use the chapters below to skip to a section that you want to watch. Sorry, I just knocked something and it made a noise. If you're new, please subscribe. I'd really appreciate that. We're on the road to 100,000 subscribers. I mean, we're like 97,000 subscribers off, but we're still on the road to it. Anyway, let's talk about the Spotlight week that Redwing is in. He's alongside Baron Zemo, which I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think this is the first time Baron Zemo has appeared in Spotlight caches since he was available in the Season Pass. So that's interesting. And he's also alongside Loki, who is another former Season Pass card. This week seems middling, I'd say. Loki is a fine card, but not doing much at the moment, and people are still clamouring for a bit of a change to Loki. I actually did get Loki off of like a Maria Hill recently, played it and absolutely dominated. It did make me sort of want to play Loki again, to be fair. And Baron Zemo is actually a good card, particularly good in Mill, and has certainly found his spot in the game. I actually just think in general, Baron Zemo is kind of maybe slightly underrated. If you think about the fact that you might pull a 2-power card, he's like a 3/7. Kind of underrated. And Redwing will obviously save our full force towards the end and as we explore in the rest of this video, but yeah, this week is fine. Kind of middling, like I say. Anyway, let's talk about the mechanics of Redwing. And by the way, guys, the main decks that Redwing is expected to fit into are decks that I'm not all that familiar with, so let's just be completely upfront about here. So if you've got thoughts on this, I'd massively appreciate you letting me know what you think of Redwing in the comments. But I think the primary decks, or really almost the only decks he's going to fit into, are the hand dump archetype. This is where you're like smashing out everything out of your hand, maybe trying to get a big strong guy, maybe trying to get Dracula to discard something huge like an Infinaut at the end of the game, or maybe just pull the Infinaut with Redwing. But that, and also just move decks in general. Now they might need some tweaking, as you'll see when we look at the deck ideas for Redwing. There are definitely some ways that you can tweak move decks to better synergize with Redwing. Anyway, so he can't move himself, he needs a trigger. So you need some way to be able to move Redwing. We'll look at, obviously, synergies and stuff, but we're thinking about things like Ghost Spider, maybe Iron Fist, and probably, most naturally, Madam Web and Heimdall are going to be the big two. The card gets added to the old location, so there will always be room, so you don't need to worry about creating space, because Redwing is moving out of a spot and adding a card to the old location. You can actually certainly have a full location with Redwing, and it's still going to work. He is a very niche card though. There are limited applications here. Let's talk about the pros. He can cheat out big cards like Infinaut or high-costed synergy cards like Heimdall. Or, you know, he can just cheat out anything. But those are going to be the key targets that you want. Infinaut is going to be a huge one here. I mean, Redwing is pulling something random. You want that random thing to be the biggest possible thing that you can pull. It's unpredictable. Your opponent won't know what kind of madness you can conjure. They don't know if you've got your Infinaut. They don't know if you've drawn your Infinaut. He's fairly hard to counter and potentially gives you agency on when to trigger. So if you think about Red Guardian, I mean, yeah, Red Guardian does exist, sure. But Redwing is coming out on turn 3 itself. So it's already getting quite late in the game for your opponent. And there's probably, generally speaking, better targets for Red Guardian to hit. Also, by the way, with free power, Redwing just might not be that likely to be able to be hit by Red Guardian. So, but the cons. There are only a limited number of cards in the game that can trigger Redwing. So you've got cards like Iron Fist and Ghost Spider, which obviously will trigger Redwing straight away. And that's fine if that works in that situation and in the kind of deck that you're playing. But in these kind of hand dump style decks where you're really relying on Madam Web or Heimdall, if they happen to be at the bottom of your deck, especially with the ordering required for things like Madam Web, that makes things a little bit tricky. And so it slightly calls into question the reliability of Redwing, which I think, considering his cost of 3, it's a lot of outlay for something that might not necessarily happen. You can't easily control which cards in your hand could be pulled by Redwing, so there's this definitive difficulty here, not only with that consideration, guys, but also think about quite a lot of locations these days that do add cards to your hand, so that's going to add to the pressure. There's lots of ways where your hand can get filled up, so yeah, that adds to the lack of reliability again that Redwing is going to perform. And he might feel awkward to play due to the ordering requirements that many move cards have, and it may not be the right time for you to trigger if your hand isn't correct. So if you haven't drawn that Infinaut yet, but you've got all the other pieces down, you've got like your Madam Web and whatnot, maybe that Infinaut never comes, or maybe that Iron Fist comes, but you haven't got the Redwing yet, and you want to get going moving other cards or playing other cards. It just might feel a little bit awkward, but we'll see. Right, let's talk about the locations, good and bad. Now, this is kind of a difficult conversation because with Redwing, and probably with specifically the hand dump decks, those Dracula style of decks, it's all about setting up your plan and then enacting the plan at the end of the game. So you could argue that these locations I've listed as good, you could argue they're actually bad. But anyway, let's talk about it. We got Aunt May's, giving the card +3 and moving means that Redwing is going to trigger straight away and get the extra bonus. Not bad, and also crucially going to put that card into Aunt May's, so that's pretty cool. Spider Island, again, instant trigger. Great Web, again, pretty much probably going to trigger if you play it right, but also gives you a bit more agency because you could just play the Redwing on Great Web. And Asteroid M. So there's these locations that will auto trigger Redwing, gives you a bit of a helping hand if you don't draw your triggers yourself. Bad locations, Destroyed Mansion, as we said, we don't like locations that are adding random stuff to a hand, like Destroyed Mansion and like Camp Lee as well. You don't want to be pulling a random free drop. You don't want to pull down that random, trying to think of a bad 3-drop. Failing because they're all phenomenal. Yeah, you know what I mean. Anyway, you don't want to draw a random thing when you've got an Infinaut in your hand specifically for that purpose. And funnily enough, near has there been a time when Muir Island has been a bad location. It's normally a good one. Yeah, sorry, that was weird. Oh, happy birthday, Blue. Oh, God. Gosh, I hope you ignore them. God, don't wish me a happy birthday. That would make me cringe and embarrassed. Yeah, but Muir Island, you might be wondering, why is Muir Island bad? You play Redwing in there, sure, you soak up that power. But then when you move out of the location, which is a good aspect to Muir Island actually, being able to move cards out of it and take that buff with you, that half of it is good. But you're adding something from your hand to that location, which is basically missed out on all of the buffs, and your opponent might be stacking it and getting like the +2 or the +3 every turn. So you don't necessarily want to pull something from your hand. I mean, not necessarily anyway, it might be right. Anyway, let's talk about counters to the card. As we said, we don't want random stuff in our hand. And in those Dracula Dump style decks, it's hard to get the stuff out of your hand anyway, so you only have a finite number of ways to dump your hand. I guess actually for a rock it doesn't matter so much if you've got the likes of Black Swan, but still. Master Mold. Oh, cringe. Sticky Sentinels that you can't get out of your hand. Same reasons, right? Red Guardian, yeah, we sort of spoke about it earlier. I don't actually think Red Guardian is going to be that big of a deal for Redwing. Rock Slide, same reasons as Korg. Stegron is interesting. Stegron's going to be able to move Redwing and trigger Redwing at a time when you may not want to. So that's interesting, but if it pulls Infinaut, then obviously it's fine. And Lady Deathstrike can kill Redwing before you can pull off the potential combo. Synergies, however, we've spoken about all of these cards already, but let's bask in the wonder. I'm like, can we please just appreciate this ultimate Madam Web? Like, this is basically the next ultimate that I'm like, would I buy that? I don't even play Madam Web that much, but this variant I just think is freaking phenomenal. Madam Web, probably the best card with Redwing. Not only does it curve into it, so you can on just pop it off straight away if you want to, especially if you're scared of that incoming Red Guardian or something. Imagine playing Madam Web down, then playing Redwing, and then playing Red Guardian. You haven't been able to play Redwing. But what if they play Red Guardian on turn 4? That'd be funny, and they're sort of expecting you to save the Redwing for later. Could be fun. Heimdall, of course. Heimdall's going to be an interesting one, because if you can get everything else out of your hand and you have only got a couple of big things, maybe a Magneto and an Infinaut or whatever, playing that Heimdall, you know you're going to get something huge with the Redwing. And crucially, the really cool strategy and synergy between Redwing specifically with Heimdall is that you're shifting left, but you're still adding something right, basically, because you're adding something from Redwing's old location, and that could certainly be the right location. So that's really cool. And of course, Infinaut, cheating out Infinaut, always going to feel good. I think that's going to actually feel hugely Endorphins-ish. That is going to release Endorphins, and that's going to be one of the sickest feelings with Redwing. By the way, can we actually figure out how Redwing's doing this? Redwing is a bird. I think it's like a penguin or something. I'm not sure. And I know people are probably going to get in the comments, but it's not a bloody penguin. It's a peregrine. It's a toucan or something. Like, guys, I'm not a zoologist. Okay, I didn't go to zoo school or animal university. I didn't go to any of that. Okay, I didn't go to critter college. Yeah, or ornithoptry. Ornithopts. I didn't learn about that. So shut up. Let's talk about some decks. So like I say, I'm not familiar with these kinds of like dump style decks. So I've got a couple of move ones for you, and we will talk about the dump one. But I need you guys to rate this dump deck in the comments and tell me if you're familiar with that dump style of deck. What do you like about playing those decks? And crucially, what do you think Redwing will bring to it? And I'll pin like the best comments, well, one, and then everyone can learn together. We can learn together, can't we? But anyway, this first one I got is a budget deck, so it's only got one Series 5 card, which is of course Redwing. Other than that, very interesting style of deck actually. When I was crafting this up, I was like, do you know what? This makes me like sort of more excited for Redwing. I think this is actually kind of interesting. So you've got your Ghost Spider and your Iron Fist to set up your early move plays, which ideally is actually Redwing or Vulture. You don't mind doing Redwing or Vulture straight away with these. Well, sorry. Of course you never mind doing Vulture straight away, but you don't mind triggering Redwing straight away, because as you'll see, the curve on this deck is quite high. We do still have a normal lower game curve or early game curve. We've got 1-1, 2-2, 3-3. We got Craven in here. We have got another trigger for Redwing, which is actually Cloak. But then the rest of our deck is this big stuff. So hopefully we can actually cheat out a big thing early. Maybe we cheat out the Vision. That allows us to rebalance by moving it. Or you cheat out the Spider-Man 2099. Because of the Spider-Man 2099 and the presence of Heimdall in here, you generally speaking always want to play Redwing at least on the right or middle location. You generally speaking don't want to play Redwing on the left, just in case you do pull that Spider-Man 2099, because there's limited other ways to trigger that Spider-Man 2099 if you get them out early. You'll usually be doing the follow-up Heimdall. Anyway, but whilst we've got quite a high curve, one of these higher costed cards is Sasquatch, so we can still get that out earlier. We can probably still even get it out on turn 4 if we do a couple of things on turn 3. Maybe you do something like Craven and Iron Fist. You're kind of wasting a movement, but hey, you could do that, or other things. In the game, you can do other things. You control your own destiny. But yeah, basically, at the end of the game, you pretty much just do, if you haven't triggered the Redwing yet, you do Heimdall and you pull something big. It could actually be quite fun. You've also got Craven in here. There's another way to get high. It could actually be quite fun. You don't need masses of move style cards like Dagger and Human Torch to actually do well. So let's see how that goes. But here is the hand dump deck though. New Wing Dump, I've called it. You basically play out in the early game. You definitely want to get out either your Madam Web or your Black Swan. If you don't have those in the early game, it's going to get sticky and difficult. Then hopefully you play out your Redwing. You get your strong guy down early. You can play your Dracula. And then on turn 5, you activate Black Swan. Dump everything. All of your 1-cost cards. If you've got any sort of remnant things left over, like maybe you had either the strong guy or the Dracula in your hand still and you just couldn't get them out, maybe you get rid of them with Blade, and you also hit Monkey and move the Redwing away from the Madam Web. Fine. Or maybe you can't have done all of that, but you do Black Swan, and you can dump all of your 1-cost cards and Heimdall, and that still triggers the... What's the card we're talking about? Redwing. Seems alright. And then finally, this one I've called Weird Wings, because this is kind of like a a mixture of sort of, it's not really a mixture actually, I don't know what I'm talking about, but it's kind of like just a slightly different style of move deck. So we've got, actually, again, a slightly higher curve here. Madam Web as our primary move trigger. We have also got the Heimdall as a backup, but yeah, ideally want the Madam Web here. We have got Human Torch, Dagger, Craven, so we've got our move scalers, so we're pretty desperate for the Madam Web in those situations. But look at the curve here, guys. You can just play out a normal game. Human Torch, you can go Craven, you can go Vulture. Oh, you haven't moved anything yet. You just play Spider-Man on 4. Something random like a Spider-Man 2099 on 5. And you can then just Heimdall and then maybe you'll win. But if you did get the Redwing out in that situation, maybe you Heimdall and you have all of those scalers going up. And then you pull an Ultron from your hand. And it fills everywhere and you get all of this surprise power. Could be an interesting one. This is less so about moving all of the move cards throughout the game and getting crazy high scores, and actually just pretty straightforwardly moving them at the end and getting the big scores that way. I mean, if you consider having Vulture, Dagger and Craven in the same location, that's a lot of power to contend with. That's a potential 8, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 28. It's like 25, 30 points power. What's it called in this game? Power, I think. Sorry. Being weird. Anyway, if you're enjoying the weirdness, please like this video, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so that you never miss a video. We are entering an incredible period actually where we've got 3 extra cards coming to the game, and that means 3 extra Snap or Pass videos coming to you. So I hope you enjoy them. Anyway, let's talk about star ratings for Redwing. I've given him 2, guys. Like I say, I'm not au fait. I'm not familiar with this style of play, and as such, I find it difficult to comprehend how he can possibly be anything more than just quite niche. Even in those decks, like, they're already cheating stuff and doing stuff, so is he a big improvement to it? The requirement of having to put stuff in those decks that allow Redwing to move, so it has to be the Madam Web, it has to be the Heimdall. I'm just not sure how that works out. I don't know how that's good, you know? But I do think, from a fun perspective, actually, cheating big cards out is fun. So I think that's gonna feel good. So I'm giving him 3.5 there. Within that archetype, sure, he's another tool within it. It's just an archetype that I don't understand all that well, so 3.5. And from a competitive standpoint, I don't... Sorry, this is good, isn't it? I'm having to film 4 of these back to back, so my voice is going to be good by the end of this. From a competitive standpoint, I don't see it. I don't see him entering the meta, really, to be honest, guys. 2.5. If you're happy for him, I'm happy for you. If you're excited for him, I'm excited for you. But for me, he is a pass, to be fair, guys. Interestingly, he was changed from the original data mines. He used to be, I think he was like a 1-2. That returned a 1-cost card to your hand, so it's kind of like a bouncy thing. Worked better with Falcon and JTF, and I think that was kind of a more interesting sort of playline for him. I think that really would have exploded bounce, because being able to multiple duplicate and multiple stack JTF with that old Redwing would have been sick. But yeah, this new one ain't the one for me, guys. Tell me why I'm wrong. Let me know in the comments below. I just shook my head. Anyway, I'm going to film the next one. The next one is, oh my god, Uncle Ben. This is going to be a meme fest. Thanks for watching, everyone. I'll see you next time. Cheers.